a long time coming, but finally we are back with a new episode of the ASUN Gameday podcast. I'm your host, William Hall. Now back in the studio, back in the room where the magic happens. And we're locked in. It's ASUN basketball. We're about a month and so into the 25-26 season, and we've had some solid wins, but mostly on the women's side, to be honest with you. I think the women's basketball this year has been great. Just to sum it up into one word, just getting right into it, I've been very impressed with Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville has had one of, if not the biggest win that we've had. I know there's another one we'll get to in a moment, but the win on the road at Georgia Tech, I think, was big for the confidence of that program, of this year's team, especially Special Jennings, the head coach of the Dolphins. I think that over the past handful of years, she's done a lot to, I guess, change that culture and get that team going in a way that they are a threat to beat anybody on any given time they get out on the court. They've had some tough opponents that they've scheduled, that they're playing. They're actually, as we're recording, they're playing one right now. But I think that all that is helping that team prepare for what's coming in January, the push to the 2026 ASUN Women's Basketball Tournament. Different this year because everybody's coming, so you know that all the teams will be here in Jacksonville. But there are things, obviously, you want to be a 1 seed. You want to be the regular season champion. You want to be one of the top 4 seeds to just get a bye and immediately know you're jumping into competing at VyStar when the tournament time comes. But I think that now, kind of laying that foundation and getting those wins, and that Georgia Tech win, I think, was great for that team. I think that squad is ready as a complete team to be a threat, and I don't see them going anywhere. I know that we kind of look at non-conference play, and there's a thought that, rightfully so, that you really can't take a lot of stock into the wins and losses that come in non-conference play. I get that. That's true. And sometimes that's usually said to just look at a team and be like, oh, this team is not as bad as their record may look because they played this person in non-conference play. So you kind of look at the record and you look at it with, okay, it's giving us something, but let's not hang our hat and be completely on that. But then there's also, I think there's obviously value in saying that if this team's winning, this team's doing what they need to do, they're getting the dubs on the floor. I mean, I don't know what else there's really to argue, so to speak. And not that I don't know if there's a big argument that Jacksonville is not having a great season. I would imagine there's not one, because I don't think anybody could have a good argument of saying something like that. Look, they're 7-2 right now in the moment. I haven't checked the score of the game that's going on while we're recording, but they're 7-2 right now. They're 5-0 at home, and I think that's been a staple of Jacksonville basketball, men's and women's, both sides. I think going into Swisher Gymnasium, they make that difficult for anybody. They make it – that's a tough place to come into that building and win. The atmosphere, the team gets up. They want to play in front of that home crowd. It's kind of tight. They're all on you. And they win in that building. And on both sides, neither team has lost this year. I think that means a lot. That is where you can hang your hat on a solid performance. So then you just have to carry that same energy and take that on the road with you. But, I mean, if you can look at your home games that you have and say, winnable, that's a solid start. And I think that's where Jacksonville is. Another team staying in the state of Florida that I think this team has the best player in the ASUN right now, Cameron Thomas. And now, obviously, Stetson Hatters is who I'm referring to. Stetson 6-2 right now. I think they also have had a good year. I think that the Stetson program has been one of those teams that's just kind of in the mix. You know that they're going to be in the top half, no matter where the highs or lows are. You kind of feel like when you look at things that Stetson's going to be there in the end when all this wraps up. I don't see any reason right now why that won't be the case this year as well. I think that team is going to be in the mix when it's all said and done. Great coach, Lynn Bria. Obviously that matters. That brings a lot to the table. The team is obviously on the same page right now, playing well. But then when you have a player that can put up the numbers that Cameron Thomas can and consistently can, I think that can drive you. I think that can put you in a lot of games that may have not been winnable become winnable games. Those games become within reach because that star player can just bring that extra X factor to your team. I think Stetson has that. And I think Stetson will be in a good position when we're winding down conference play late February, getting ready for our tournament this year. Obviously, Central Arkansas is another team on the women's side that I think probably should have a few more wins than they do, but they've been playing a very challenging schedule. What Tony Kemper is doing with that team, I think they're another squad that's going to be in a great position when we get going into conference play and get going into starting to have these teams battle against each other. I think the interesting thing now is that you look across the conference and you say, well, this team's got some size that they may not have had, or this team's got some speed, or they've got some guard play that they may not have had. But how is that going to match up? Because for the past, I don't know how many years, we've kind of always looked at women's basketball in the ASUN and said, who is going to be that team? Not the question of who was going to be that team at the top. Who is that team who's going to challenge FGCU? I think this year it's open. I think it's more wide open than it ever has been in recent history, that there are a lot of teams that I would not be surprised to see them in the mix right now. And again, this is talking middle of December, no conference games. None of these teams have even played each other, but I get that. But I've mentioned Jacksonville, I mentioned Stetson, Central Arkansas, Austin P, EKU. To be honest with you, FGCU. I mean, they have, I don't know if you would call it struggle. I mean, you would say that compared to what they have been, that they're different. It's new coach, it's new team. Of course they're going to be different. They also have a win against Stanford. So that might calm some of that noise down a little bit down there in Fort Myers. And I think that team's going to be fine. So I'm really looking forward to what this is all going to look like in a few weeks when we get into conference play. I think that's the most exciting part. Obviously, you love to see what you get in non-conference, seeing these teams kind of grow, come together. But then January 1, his New Year's Day, rubber meets the road, and it's time to get to it. The grind starts, and we will be heading into, again, that much different tournament format than we've had in the past. All 12 teams here in Jacksonville, Florida, all roads leading to VyStar. I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be very exciting. I'm excited. Hopefully you're excited as well. And the women's, we've got a lot of teams in high in the net as those rankings have come out. And just ASUN women's basketball has been solid, been on point this year. So that's been great. Now, switching to the men's side, I think that there is – I will admit, I'm a bit surprised. And I'm going to talk about Lipscomb. I didn't necessarily think that Lipscomb was going to be performing as well as they are right now. Not that they weren't capable of it, but just looking at things that I thought may be factors. You're bringing in a new coach. You got the turnover on the rosters, which everybody is dealing with in this NIL era. But Lipscomb has kind of just kept rolling this year. They are looking like a team that will be in the mix to be ASUN champion again. I think that's great. I think that's great for our conference, for a team with just the history in the conference to be there. And then obviously just great for that community and great for Lipscomb, because you would think that change would lead to a bigger potential drop. And Kevin Carroll, to his credit, has come in, got that team rolling, and they look ready to go. They look ready to compete. I'm all about seeing what Lipscomb is going to do once conference play gets started, because I think that that's just looking at our preseason polls. I'm not the only one. So I'll admit it here now, but I wasn't the only one. If you look at our preseason rankings that thought that Lipscomb may be middle of the pack, but right now they're driving the cart non-conference wise, and I get it. We'll clean this slate and we'll start off 0-0 when we get to January. Another team that started off hot and it's kind of cooled off a little bit, FGCU. And I'm always feeling like that FGCU men's basketball team is going to just they always something right there and they just will take off and they just are going to be the front runners in the conference. About 2 weeks ago, I think that they were. I think now is they've had a couple of losses. They've stumbled a little bit here. I still think that is a good team, and I feel like once we get into January and they have gotten the chance to kind of take that break, reset, I think they can jump into conference play and start off as hot as they seemingly did in non-conference action. They jumped out and had the most wins in the league for several weeks early here. That team has always had a lot of fight in it, led by Pat Chambers. They always compete, and they're going to give it to you all the way to the end. I mean, I think back into that game with Kennesaw State overtime. Like they're going to fight. They're going to fight. FGC's not going to roll over, and I think that's important. And obviously, like I was mentioning for the women, same thing with the men, same format. You know you're in the tournament, but you want to drive. You want that bye. You want that regular. Obviously, the cloud that comes with being a regular season champion, but you want the ability to have a favorable matchup going into the tournament, and then putting a couple wins together. Next thing you know, you're heading to March Madness. Speaking of March Madness, we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back to talk with a special guest about some more ASUN men's basketball.
Welcome to the Atlantic Sun, where heart-pounding moments are born and where champions rise above, where speed defies limits and precision finds its mark, where millions of fans nationwide cheer for excellence, determination, and fairness, where public, private, and faith-based schools compete side by side, fostering sportsmanship and unity. From the beaches to the mountains, the Atlantic Sun is the destination.
Welcome back here on the ASUN Gameday podcast. I am joined by Andy Katz, college basketball analyst. Andy, how are you?
I'm doing great. The season's in full throttle. We're just sort of getting down to the last few sort of non-conference games, some guarantee games. And within a couple of weeks right after the holidays, pretty much we're into the conference play for all 31 conferences. And we start the sprint to March.
Yep. It's definitely coming. Just looking back over a past month and some change here with the ASUN, a team that we're obviously recording this here on a Wednesday. Last night had a strong first half against number 3 Duke, but Lipscomb, our reigning ASUN champion. I know there was a lot of changes, a new coach, new players on the court for the Bisons, but what has been your thoughts of seeing Lipscomb so far this season in this new Kevin Carroll era?
Well, I watched the game. What I loved about Lipscomb that we've seen in years past with them is there's no fear, no intimidation, because I think for any player going into Cameron, whether you're from a sort of a one-bid league or a power league, there's an intimidation factor. It's extremely difficult to get a win there. I don't care who you are, and I don't care what rating you have as a player or what have you. And so they went toe-to-toe with Duke, got a lead, and really were right there with them. And I think that showed a lot because if and when they end up being the champ, we'll see. But, you need to at least check that at the door. Make sure that there's no intimidation before you even toss the ball up.
Right.
And there's no question a school like Lipscomb challenge, in the NCAA tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me.
We got Lipscomb obviously is our reigning champion, playing well early non-conference. Again, we all know everybody starts 0-0 once we get into January in conference play. Another team that has had a challenging non-conference slate, I think by choice. They scheduled a great non-conference schedule. Queens. They've got a lot of teams that are on their schedule that are obviously they're playing a higher talent. From your vantage point, what does that do for a team like that, a mid-major program like Queens, challenging these top 25 programs consistently, especially the last couple of weeks of non-conference play?
Yeah, look, I'm looking at their slate here, and I was tracking that early in the year. They played at Villanova, played, actually we're within 6 of Duquesne on the road. Road games were road games. Virginia went to Wake, Arkansas. As we're talking here, their next game is at Auburn. So there's no question that they are pushing the envelope. The main thing for them is to ensure that they do not get discouraged. Now, in the games that they won, defense has been pretty good. I mean, think about this. They scored 107 against Gardner-Webb, 102 against South Carolina State, 101 against Greensboro, 81 against Sacred Heart, 87 in a non-D1 game against Lynchburg. And even in the games they lost, these ones I rattled off, they were able to score.
Right.
Really, if just a quick scan. I mean, I think Virginia held them to 69. That might have been their lowest outpoint in terms of a game that they lost. So offense is not going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And this is a good example where we can't get, and I don't care if it's the ASUN, whatever, any league, any team, I should say, that plays that kind of schedule from a league that unfortunately traditionally may get only one bid.
Right.
Their non-conference record shouldn't be an indicator of where they may finish in the league. So if they're sub 500, we shouldn't, look at them. We should not dismiss them as a contender because they played a great schedule and clearly they can put the ball in the basket.
Right.
So they are a threat no matter who they go up against.
Yep, definitely. And I think that's a big thing with Queens. They're scoring. I think we kind of, from our side, looking at them coming in, felt like they would be a threat offensively. Obviously, the coaches voted them first in the poll. They got the preseason player of the year. So the expectation was there for Queens. And you look at a team like Lipscomb, who obviously was a champion, but new coach, kind of are exceeding the expectations coming in. As you said, non-conference is a kind of a thing you can look at and kind of get a gauge for what. Obviously, with Queens, you can see that they can score. But again, fair point that we can't use that to think, well, this team won't be any good once they start playing the other 11 schools in our conference. One other team I wanted to throw at you and get your thoughts on, Austin Peay. I think that's a team that a few years ago was in our conference championship final, ended up pushing and having a pretty solid year last year and starting off. I think Austin Peay has been another one of those teams that's looked good, and what Corey Gibson is doing there in Clarksville is paying out on the floor and the productivity that team is showing. But when you look at Austin Peay, what's your take on them?
Well, again, they played a really good schedule. If there's probably a game they want back, it might be this game within the last couple of weeks at UT Rio Grande. That's more of an outlier. When I look at their schedule, I mean, Tulsa, I think, is the best team in the American. Ole Miss has been consistently good in the SEC. Wyoming's having a pretty good year so far in the Mountain West. They did win so that was a same trip going to Air Force in Wyoming at altitude. So that's significant to split that trip. Getting a win over Northern Illinois in the MAC, that's significant. Beating East Tennessee State, another quality win for them. So, yeah, I mean, I think they're another team that you'd have to look at as saying, they're a good balance for players in double figures, that they're going to be in this mix as well. And again, I would not look at the records. Look at who these teams played, where they played them, and what their efficiency was. And I would say in the ones we just rattled off, in Lipscomb, Queens, and Austin Peay, clearly they all have performed at a high level. The results may not always be there, but I think when they get more peer-to-peer, we'll see them rise to the top.
Yeah, fair. So obviously, like you said, we're getting close. The race is about to really heat up when we get into January, easing into our conference tournament, and then of course March Madness. But Andy, I definitely appreciate a few minutes of your time here to talk some ASUN men's basketball, and we'll touch base hopefully later in the spring.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate Andy Katz taking some time to stop by the ASUN Gameday podcast, talk a little ASUN men's basketball with us. But now It's the moment that I've been waiting on the entire podcast. It's time for the power rankings. I hadn't done this in a while, but I wouldn't feel like wrapping up an ASUN Gameday podcast without giving my thoughts on the power rankings and the top 6 of men's and women's basketball. So, ladies first. Let's start with the women. I think they've had a great non-conference season, so we'll go with them. Number 6 right now, I have North Alabama. I think that they've got some good wins. They have some games that I think got away from that they will want back, but I put them at a solid 6 right now. Number 5, I got Austin Peay. I can't ever get out on Austin Peay. I just feel like they find their way. They're gritty. They play hard, and they just don't go away. They're always in the mix. Number 4, mentioned this team earlier, EKU. I just think that they are a well-coached team that always keeps talented student athletes on that roster, and Greg Todd is just I think he's a great coach. I think that team is he puts his team in a lot of great positions to win. Right now, I have them at number 4. The top 3 was tricky. But I'm gonna go Stetson number 3. I've kind of laid out my reasons for why I think Stetson has had a good year. I'm gonna say 3 because number 2 is Central Arkansas. Enough said. UCA is my number 2 team right now, and I get this. It's way too early, but my eye test. Number 1 is Jacksonville right now. I'm locked in on that. That's my power rankings. North Alabama, Austin Peay, EKU, Stetson, Central Arkansas, number 1 Jacksonville. Talk to me tomorrow. That could be different, but right now that's what it is. On to the men. Number 6, West Georgia. I don't look at me like that. I'm 10 toes down. It's number 6. Number 5, North Alabama. That's who I'm going. UNA is number 5. Number 4 is the FGCU. That's just where I am. Records are where they are, but I got FGC at number 4 because number 3 is Queens. And I know I just said something about records. You have to look at who that team has played and where they are in these games. And I just feel like as a team, they are higher than where their record shows that they are non-conference-wise. Number 2 is Austin Peay. And number 1 is Lipscomb. Hey, it could change. It's very early. It's probably way too early for power rankings, but it just felt right. So we are locked in. Just a few more weeks of non-conference action before January 1, New Year's Day. The 2026 conference slate begins, and we'll be on the road to VyStar. All roads lead to Jacksonville, Florida for both men's and women's basketball tournaments. So we will talk to you again soon. I am William Hall. It's been the ASUN Gameday podcast, and let's get to it.